Welcome to episode 18 of the Bach and Arthur podcast. Yay! We celebrate this every single time.
And it should be celebrated. Not only a new episode, but just the fact that we're still here.
Yeah.
Smiling.
The episode 17 went up yesterday, and we had a couple comments about our sitting situation.
Oh, yeah.
They like the cross-legged situation.
They do. They like the sofa.
Because
it's cozier.
It's cozier. But they did speak a lot about me wriggling my toes when you speak, which makes me feel a little uncomfortable now.
There was so many comments about you wriggling your toes.
Yeah, you told me the one about like when you're speaking, apparently I dart my eyes around the room and wiggle my toes, which makes me sound so submissive.
So creepy, like you're planning something.
Talking.
Like you've been captured here and you're being held here against your will.
Finally, you guys are figuring it out. Help me. Anyway, today we're going to be speaking about, the main topic is going to be anxiety. Because I don't think it's spoken about much, especially by men, anyway. So we're going to be speaking a little about the history of it, the science of it, and personal experience. And then we'll end off with some fun stuff, talking about yesterday. We did some stuff yesterday with Amazon Prime. We played some games yesterday.
Yeah, we did.
They were scary, weren't they?
Yeah, we got some little stories to tell.
Yeah.
But if you're wondering, why does it look like they just woke up? We did. Wow. It's very early in the morning. We've got a little Simon Sunday actually straight after this that we're filming just after lunch. So we're doing an early podcast.
It's true. And when you wake Arthur up, you have to ease him into the day. You have to pick him. Well, I was picking you up. I was rocking you for a bit, wasn't I? Okay, anyway.
You can always tell when I've woken up early because my face is a little bit puffy. I think
Your face always looks like that.
Sleep right.
We call it looking like you've been stung by a wasp. He's got a certain bit of that puff about him. You know what I mean?
Going to say anything about how sniffly you are this morning?
Yeah, I get congested in the mornings.
That's way more embarrassing.
Anyway, so anxiety. What is anxiety? Do you want to?
I'm feeling anxious waiting for this. Well, you're the one that's fully prepped this, so I'll let you take it away.
Okay, so I'll give you the actual definition of anxiety, okay? It's a natural response to stress characterized by feelings of worry, nervousness, or fear that are strong enough to interfere with one's daily activities. It's a normal emotion that everyone experiences at times, heavy on that, but when these feelings become overwhelming, persistent, and excessive, they can be classified as an anxiety disorder. Okay, so there's two different things. You've got anxiety disorders and you've got anxiety. So you can feel anxious at times. It doesn't mean you have an anxiety disorder. And there are many different signs and symptoms. I feel like I'm at the NHS on the other side of the seat right now. It's kind of good. So I should look at you when I'm saying this.
Right, I feel more anxious now.
It can manifest physically and psychologically. Now, do you want to guess some of the psychological symptoms? I've got 5 here. There may be more, but I just want to see how many you can get off this list of 5.
The psychological
symptoms, yeah.
Of anxiety?
Yeah.
Give me one so I know exactly what that means.
One would be restlessness.
Right. Yeah.
To be honest, I don't know if you'll get any of them because they're kind of like, they're not vague, but they're not like something that would just stick out in your mind.
Yeah, go on. Just tell me. I can't really think.
Number 1, excessive worrying. Number 2, restlessness.
That sounds like, see, I'm not very, I would say I don't really understand anxiety and when you're talking about anxiety now, are you talking about?
So this is anxiety, not an anxiety disorder.
Right, okay. So you mean general anxiety?
Yeah.
So the anxiety I would feel?
Yeah, exactly. Right, general anxiety, because an anxiety disorder will mean like you literally can't do anything because it sort of controls you. You can't, it said at the end, when it's so overwhelming and persistent and excessive. So it's like, it's not where it's like a one-off, like if you're doing like a big event or something, you get anxious, you got anxiety for that day. It's something that happens every single day. That's
tough though, because how exactly do you define excessive? Because even just worrying a little bit too much is technically excessive.
Yeah.
I guess that's why it's difficult, to categorize this. And
it's the same with any psychological thing though.
Yeah. You get a lot of people that go, I believe I have this and I wasn't diagnosed, and people who self-diagnose and all that kind of stuff, because it's not a simple, easy binary to be like yes or no,
No, I think if you've suffered with anxiety in certain situations, then you've definitely got anxiety, but for it to be like an actual disorder, it has to be something that happens every single day without a trigger. Whereas for most people, it would be something that would trigger it,
Yeah. I think that's the thing I think when I think of if someone says I have anxiety and they mean it in a disorder way, it's like a not caused one.
Yeah, exactly.
Not caused by something.
Yeah, you can't pinpoint why.
I would assume logical or reasonable, where you'd be like,
exactly.
Yeah.
So the symptoms, this is written down as excessive worrying, restlessness, irritability, difficulty concentrating, and anticipating the worst. And then there's physical symptoms. I think these are easier to guess. Go on, there's 8 written
down. Sweating.
Yes.
Shaking.
Yes.
If you're feeling like physical restlessness, can imagine if you're. I'm trying to. I wonder whether they're the same for both anxiety as well, but the causes and stuff are just different. Like, whether you've got anxiety or anxiety disorder, whether you still have the same symptoms.
I think it's the same.
Yeah.
It's just
different
trigger versus trigger.
Right. Okay. Yeah, like physical restlessness. I think when I feel anxious, I'm always like sort of like. If I feel anxious about an exam or something like that, I'm always tapping my fingers and.
Yeah, that's not written down, but it's got trembling or shaking. I think that's the similar sort of thing. Like, yeah, you don't know what to do with yourself.
What else? Rapid heart rate, rapid breathing.
Yep, both of those.
Elevated temperature.
Doesn't say that.
Sort of like you get people.
I think that would naturally happen for increased heart rate anyway.
Maybe right.
Think about before you go somewhere, you're a little bit nervous for it.
Yeah.
You might be on the toilet.
Oh, really?
Gastrointestinal issues.
Oh.
So when people say they got the nervous shits.
Oh, that's a real thing.
It's a real thing.
Wow.
It's a real thing. Not sure why.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Any others?
Give me more hints.
I'll give you. Okay, let's go with, it's to do with your rest.
Wasn't that already one we've already had? You're kind of restless. You can't really sleep.
Well, yeah, you get insomnia.
Insomnia.
And fatigue. And then dizziness and lightheadedness.
Oh, yeah, I get.
So those are some of the symptoms. But I guess it's a broad spectrum for psychological and physical symptoms. You can't really pinpoint them down. Would you like to know the science behind anxiety?
Yeah, go on.
So this will, it's interesting, isn't it? Because with any psychological disorder, it's your brain has like done it to yourself. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So there's such difficult ones to overcome, or they can really, really control people because it is you who's, you know what? It's like your brain is attacking itself in many ways.
I know what you can.
And the science behind anxiety, how do you say that? Amygdala.
The amygdala.
Amygdala. Anyway, the amygdala, right, is a key brain
that's
region.
How my biology teacher used to pronounce it.
Amygdala, that works way better, I think. So that's involved in processing emotions, and particularly fear. Plays a crucial role in anxiety response by triggering the body's fight or flight reaction. When the amygdala perceives a threat, it sends signals that initiate the release of stress hormones. And so the prefrontal cortex is responsible for the higher order cognitive functions, such as decision-making and regulating emotions. In individuals with anxiety, the prefrontal cortex has difficulty controlling the amygdala's fear response, leading to excessive worry and anxiety. So the prefrontal cortex basically can't control your amygdala's fear response. So your fear response kicks in unwillingly.
Yeah. I really like knowing the science behind stuff like this, because I think we might be a border generation. I don't know about you. Obviously you're a couple of years younger. But when I was at school, like I remember saying to Chris, like I never heard like depression, anxiety, anything like that. And now my little sisters who are all in school will talk about it and be like half their friends will have something. And I sit there and wonder, like, how many of my mates at school had anxiety or depression, and like, because we had never heard of it.
You just don't speak about it.
We didn't speak about it. They'd just be like, oh, this is so weird. Like, I feel anxious, but I've got nothing to feel anxious about. Like, what the hell is going on? It's kind of good that now people are like, you know, if you're in school, you just be like, oh, I've got anxiety. Like, this is a normal thing. Like, you know, there's ways for me to access help on this, and like ways for me to deal with it. And you can actually search it up rather than just, I bet loads of my mates would just be sitting in their room like, what the hell do I do about this?
Yeah, that's the same with me. No one spoke about it at school. And it was sort of like, especially as a guy, you don't really want to come out and say, oh, I'm feeling anxious, or
Is this why you did this
I've got anxiety.
topic? Because this is personal to you?
Well, my girlfriend said I should do the topic because I did actually really suffer with anxiety at one point. But I managed
As in anxiety disorder?
No. So I never actually got diagnosed.
Right.
But I was just like, even silly things. When I passed my driving test, I wouldn't drive to certain towns because I was just anxious about it. And I wouldn't go, I would never come into London or anything like that.
Although obviously you say not diagnosed, and I don't mean to attempt to diagnose you, but given we're discussing this on a podcast, that sounds like it would fall under the category of excessive.
Yeah, no, at the time I felt like it was. I never actually went to get diagnosed. And the thing, it speaks about it later, it can be hereditary, and my mum suffered with it as well. She would have panic attacks and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I never actually took the step to go and get diagnosed because I felt like if I went and got diagnosed, it might make it worse for me, if that makes sense. Like it would put me in a box mentally. Yeah. But it controlled me for a little while, but I did manage to get my way out of it. That's why I wanted to speak about it, because there are ways that can help manage your symptoms, and eventually you do just become more confident. Like I couldn't imagine 5 years ago me coming into London, sitting in front of cameras and doing a podcast.
Yeah,
I was way more of a worrier. Like I just wouldn't do it.
That is fair. And not to overthink and worry in the same way. But I think whilst we're talking about this as well, given this is quite personal to you, I think might just be worth saying for people listening that your experiences and any of my own that I can relate to will be different to other people's, and anything that we say works for us might not work for everyone. And I will probably say a good number of things in this podcast that will be like, he doesn't understand, or but I'm just trying to understand.
Yeah, it's all personal experience, personal relationship with it as well.
Yeah, like we're. Yeah, I wonder if I'm now, even on the topic of anxiety, it's making me think like overthinking it. But I don't know, because it is quite a sensitive and difficult topic to discuss.
It is, yeah.
And obviously, really, right. I think it's a great thing to speak about, especially if you've got your own personal experience with it. But at the same time, we'll try and be as sensitive as possible to other people's experiences and the stuff that we don't know. And
just bear in mind, we're going to be speaking out about it from our own perspectives, like how our experiences with it, how we perceive it, and all of that sort of stuff.
From a very we're not professionals.
No,
I mean, that's the great thing about the YouTube comment section, is that you guys can be like,
yes,
and that will happen.
Us, yeah.
You can just be like, oh, you guys spoke about this, actually this, or, did you know this? Or, oh, this is maybe a slightly older understanding. Here's a newer understanding from science and social sciences that have developed this. So please feel free to add as much information and context as possible.
Yeah, exactly.
And someone actually did suggest the other day either having a description or a pinned comment where we go like, because obviously like we speak about so much stuff, and there's a lot of science and stuff where we go like, oh, by the way, here's a little correction or a community note or a footnote and stuff. Maybe we'll do that and compile some of the important bits, but feel free to.
So we'll keep an eye on the comments.
Discussion.
Check us on the comments, or add anything of value as well. So I'm just talking in briefly like what the overall idea of anxiety is, and then we're just going to go on to talk about like history of it, our experience and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, no, it is interesting. Very interesting. I'm really looking forward to this.
And then obviously neurotransmitters play a huge role in anxiety, like serotonin and norepinephrine. I'm sure someone will tell me how to pronounce that properly in the comments. But serotonin, if you have low levels of serotonin, it's linked to anxiety and depression. And then the one that I can't pronounce, norepinephrine, I'd imagine it would be, is elevated levels can contribute to heightened arousal and anxiety because it's the body's stress response. So
that's quite Freudian. He sort of started off linking anxiety and sexuality.
We'll speak about later because he spoke about the libido.
Yeah, he very much thought that anxiety was very tied into
I wonder why
sexual repression and
why
stuff.
He went straight to the penis.
He always does, doesn't he?
Yeah, he always does. That's the problem with Sigmund Freud. And then, like I said earlier,
I'm like, at least have dinner first. He's trying to just go straight for the penis. I'm like, Freud, we've been through this. You got to wine and dine me first, boy.
Freud's dead, isn't he?
Not in here.
Not down there.
For the audio listeners, I'm pointing straight to my heart.
Dick. Whatever. And then genetics play a role as well, because it can be genetic predisposition, and also epigenetics. So your environmental factors.
I love epigenetics. That's
can obviously bring on anxiety, like if you have any certain traumas or anything like that.
And that's kind of what I was saying with the science stuff earlier. Like, I think there's a tendency, because I was like a borderline generation. We didn't really have the like, I'm not in the, it doesn't exist, none of it's real age bracket. And again, that's a generalization. There are plenty of people like my parents would be
that's
very
so
understanding and stuff. But it tends to be more the case that older generations are like, this isn't real. Yeah, all that kind of stuff. And the new generation who are like, it's ubiquitous.
Yeah.
But knowing that there's like solid science behind it and being like, this isn't just a thought in your head that exists in a non-tangible way. It's like you can kind of see it in your genome, like it's written in your DNA, and it's like a very much physiological, one that you can record. Like we can measure stress in hormonal ways and many other ways, and kind of giving it like a real solid scientific grounding. Can only be beneficial, I think.
True. Like they call it a psychological disorder, yet it's really everything's physiological.
Yeah.
Because like we were saying, it's all about neurotransmitters, the body's chemistry and stuff like that. Like
it's not
something.
The psychological stuff is just physical stuff in the brain, I guess.
Yeah.
Mostly,
it's like it's just something that can't be avoided. But they've been doing research. There's loads of research now into anxiety and psychological disorders and stuff like that, because it's way more widespread spoken about. And there's some proven ways to manage your anxiety. Now, I'm not saying these are going to help everyone. These are just based on studies that have found ways that can actually help. And obviously they do the tests, they look at you under, they do a scan, scan your brain, and they could see the activity of your brain and whether it helps or not helps. But everyone will find a different thing that works for them. I want to see that. So I've picked out 3 of them.
Okay.
I want to see if you can guess them. Proven ways to manage your anxiety.
Slow and deep breathing.
Yes.
Because that has such a significant control effect on your heart rate, slowing heart rate.
That's so true.
That comes from my like surfery sea background. Like if I obviously in Jersey, if the sea's a bit quiet and there aren't many waves, freediving is a real popular thing. You sort of paddle out on your surfboard and just go under. And obviously the male ego being as it is when you're an early teenager, all the boys want to be able to last as long as possible underwater. And
whoa, what were you
not
doing?
That kind of
what
stuff.
Were you doing underwater?
To be fair, they know the surfboard story.
Ew.
Which I've repeated too many times.
Say it again.
No, okay. Ain't telling that one again.
You got to go back to the old pods to find that.
Yeah.
17 other pods to fish through if they haven't heard it.
I think that was on Useless Hotline in the Fellas. I don't think I've told that story on this one. No.
Ooh.
Maybe it was one for another day.
Let us know in the comments if you want to hear that story. Put a surfboard emoji.
Where was I going with that? Oh yeah, and I remember reading that slowing your heart rate, like has a massive impact on how long you can hold your breath underwater, and you can, if you do like slow deep breathing, that'll slow it down. You can last way longer underwater. Yeah. So that works. I take it.
Yeah. Well, the first one I had written down was mindfulness-based stress reduction, which is like breathing, controlled breathing, and meditation, that sort of stuff. And
meditation, I would imagine, would be hard though, because the whole point of meditation is like kind of making your mind at rest and at peace. I mean, there's a bunch of different types of meditation, isn't there? There's a sort of like clear your mind and trying to make you have zero thoughts. And another type of meditation is just accepting the fact that your brain does spring up with thoughts, and rather than engaging with them, just sort of observing them and letting them pass. And I wonder which one would be better.
That's true. I like that.
Because I think you almost can find it more stressful. Because I've tried to meditate and just been like, clear your mind, and then a couple of seconds later something will pop in your head, and you can't really stop your brain doing the thing where thoughts pop into your brain.
And when you don't want to do something, your brain actively does it for some reason. Yeah. Like you're like, okay, I'm not going to think of anything, and then it will just throw something out. Which
is why I really like the meditation of like, it's almost like a stoic meditation. It's like accepting the fact that your brain does jump into these things, and you can't really control that part of your brain, but just going, thoughts will come and go, and when they come in, just sit back and observe them. You don't have to engage with them. You don't have to think about them too much. Just be like, oh, that's my brain doing its thing. but I'm very much at peace with that.
Yeah. And I'm glad you brought up the breathing thing as well, because I read a book on, it's called Breathe by James Nestor. Such a good book. It talks about how important breathing is and how we've forgotten how to breathe properly. Because now
Like Cole Palmer.
Like Cole Palmer. Are you talking because he's not got much of a chin?
No, I'm not dissing his facial features.
I thought you were calling him a mouth breather.
Are they related?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So
Is that part of the book?
That's the whole thing. If you breathing through your mouth is killing you. And so,
Killing?
yeah. You
It's actually
die
bad for
sooner.
health.
You
That
die
is
sooner
crazy.
breathing through your mouth.
Freezy and Chip do talk about this. They've done a podcast. I'd love to dive into the
Oh, we
science
should
of
do a
that.
whole podcast on breathing.
Yeah.
I'll just read that book again and then I've got it.
Really?
Yeah,
You
'cause
actually,
it's so interesting. Like even breathing through your I think it's the left nostril, calms you down, reduces your heart rate, and it gets you ready for rest or whatever. Breathing through your right hand nostril activates fight or flight and digestion.
What?
So if you sit there
You know,
after
they
a meal,
alternate as well.
yeah, and one will block up throughout the day. It's because they regulate depending on which nostril you're breathing through.
Yeah, let's do one. So I've heard mouth breather, but I thought that's just because he's like always got his mouth open. And
No, because
looks
it actually
a bit
does. It affects the shape of your face. And although mewing's become like brain rot now, it actually is the correct way to hold your tongue on the roof of your mouth, because we, as humans, don't chew as much as we should chew. All our food is too soft now, so we get no jaw development, which means our sinuses don't get as wide as they should be.
Wow.
And with
what?
braces now, our mouth actually becomes smaller, and so it just it affects like the bone structure in your sinuses and everything like that. So as time goes on, like the modern human is not good at breathing anymore. But you should be able to just breathe through your nose slowly. You should be taking like elongated exhales through your nose. Like it should be like, okay, the ideal breath is 5.5 seconds inwards.
Bro's turning this into the breathing
And
podcast.
5.5 seconds outwards. No, but it links so well to anxiety, because if you can control your breathing, it genuinely helps, because it psychologically does calm you down and reduces your heart rate. But we'll do a whole episode on breathing, because there's so much you can speak about it. It's really interesting. And that's why there's so much popularity with like Wim Hof and people like that now, because people realize the power in breath.
Of course.
But no, it's really interesting. The next one, shall I give you the next one, or do you want to guess it?
So what have you got? Breathing meditation.
I feel like it's on the same sort of train as that.
I don't know, you know. I would just think
Shall I tell you?
anything kind of like relaxing, like lying back, relaxing, closing your eyes.
It's actually exercise.
What? Oh,
Yeah. And I guess that makes sense, because
do you mean in the long term it helps?
in the long term, so
Yeah.
regular physical exercise
Oh, yeah,
significantly
yeah.
reduces anxiety symptoms, both aerobic and anaerobic, which is like running or weightlifting.
Yeah.
And the most benefits are observed with moderate intensity exercise performed several times a week.
Interesting.
So, and I can see that, because it does produce, like you do produce serotonin when you go on a run and
yeah, it
stuff
fills
like
you with
that.
feel good chemicals.
It does.
It's such a common thing on TikTok and Twitter, actually, people being like, they'll kind of get annoyed because they'll like go to their doctor, and their doctor will be like, have you tried like exercising and getting a good sleep
Yeah.
routine? And they're like, oh, for goodness sakes. And then they do it and they're like kind of annoyed that
Yeah.
it helps, because they're like,
It's probably the way that the doctors deliver the information.
Yeah.
They probably just say, you need to exercise more, you need to do this, rather than telling them why,
yeah.
you know?
But also that's not exactly going to cure it, is it?
No.
I think that's the thing. Like if you're feeling like this, you're like, I kind of want more than just the basics,
Yeah.
you know?
And
But it does help, they say.
It does help. And the next one I had written down, similar to exercise, the role of diet.
Yeah.
I didn't write anything down about medication or anything like that, because all of that should be spoken about with medical professionals.
Yeah.
We're not here to talk
That's
about
fair.
medication. But yeah, omega-3 fatty acids, probiotics, and certain vitamins like vitamin D and B vitamins are
Ooh.
associated with reductions in anxiety symptoms.
Yeah.
Diets rich in whole foods, particularly fruits, vegetables, lean proteins, and healthy fats, support mental health and reduced anxiety.
Interesting.
So now these are suggested by science. What's the word for it? Ways to ease your symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
To exercise, practice mindful breathing and meditation, and consuming a better diet definitely will help scientifically, but not saying this is like gonna completely fix anxiety for anyone. It's really just a journey you've got to go on yourself to figure out what works for you. But yeah, I do think. Do you find how well do you eat? Would you say?
Pretty well. I'm quite conscious of it, just because I mean, mainly just physical shape.
Yeah. Do you feel better when you eat well?
It's almost the opposite, because I think I generally eat quite well. I tend to, like focus quite a lot on healthy eating. Like whenever I have my meals, doing them 5 a day and all that kind of stuff. But then it's the other way around. I notice it when I've had a bad, when I don't eat well.
That's
like
true,
if I have
actually.
a McDonald's,
I
feel rough for a few hours. Same with drinking. Like if I go out on a night out and drink, and then the day after, like you don't particularly eat that well when you're hungover, because you just don't fancy it. Like you're not craving apples and bananas. You want like a fry up, and you often have sloppy meals at the end of the night to like help with prevent the hangover. And then I can really feel it. Like if I'm not eating well.
Yeah. Is it a feeling of like you're beating yourself up for not eating well, or you just feel bad because the food?
Yeah, I think it's a physical thing. I don't think I'm very much, I like to mentally accept the fact that I'm allowed to,
that's good.
Treat myself, and, nothing bad's going to happen if I have a bad meal or a bit of fast food here and there. But physically, I can just tell.
Yeah, you definitely can physically.
Yeah. How about you?
Yeah, same here. I eat kind of well. I've eaten better in the past, but
You're a sweet treats enjoyer.
I am a sweet treats enjoyer.
To be fair, we said you were just clowning on me for having a brownie for breakfast.
He has just had a brownie for breakfast.
We had a small cafe on the way here because we had an early start, and there really weren't that many options.
Guys, I got a croissant.
I'm not a plain croissant enjoyer.
Are you really not? I love a croissant. I think
I need jam in it.
My death row meal would just be one massive croissant, probably.
Enough croissant to kill you.
Yeah, death by croissant. That's so good.
That electric chair, keep it. I don't need it.
It's yours.
It's yours.
It's yours. You
keep
can keep it. Oh, hell no. How do we get onto that? How have you done that? Yeah, no.
Eating meals wise, that's diet.
Yeah, okay, yeah, you're right. But you do need to be. I know a lot of people beat themselves up when they have a bad meal, and that can trigger like feelings of anxiety and stuff. Just don't. You're like most. There we go. Fixed. Next. No, but I'm saying just.
That's the anxiety pod. Feeling anxious, just don't.
No, I'm saying.
Hey guys, don't worry about it. There you go. Problem solved.
Hey guys, I'm saying be kind to yourself. I would say 80% of the voice you hear is yourself. So make it kind.
I would say 80% of the nasty thoughts I hear come from you.
Okay. I'm trying to be motivational here.
No, sorry, you're right.
Wait, put the motivational music back on. So 80% of the voice you hear day in, day out is your own voice. So make it kind.
Yeah.
That's true. Have a conversation with yourself in the mirror. Be nice about yourself. When you wake up in the morning, look at yourself in the mirror and give yourself a compliment. And say, maybe I want a croissant this morning. Maybe I want a brownie this morning. That's fine. You know why? Because I enjoyed it. And life's all about enjoyment.
Yeah, come on.
Right.
Back to philosophy.
Moving on. Now I think you'll like this one because there's a history of anxiety.
Oh, nice. Come on.
Which is interesting because the oldest recorded case of anxiety, can you guess which historical group this is recorded in?
Ancient Greeks, I would imagine.
Close.
The Romans.
Also close. The other one.
What do you mean the other one?
They had a big old library.
Alexandria?
The
Egyptians?
Yeah.
Really?
The ancient Egyptians.
Wow.
So can you read that? Eber's Papyrus. I don't know if you've ever seen that before.
No.
I feel like you would have seen that.
No.
The Eber's Papyrus.
Oh, that's papyrus.
Okay. Oh, that kind of fruit. I love that fruit. A medical document. Anyway, it's a medical document from around 1550 BCE, which is
before the Common Era.
Nice. There are references to symptoms resembling anxiety, such as heart palpitations and breathlessness, though they were often attributed to spiritual or supernatural causes.
That is not surprising at all.
Which isn't surprising, yeah. However, the Greeks had a different perspective on it. Now, the ancient Greeks had a sophisticated approach to mental health. Hippocrates,
Yes.
460
Yep.
to 370 BCE, often referred to as the father of medicine, described various mental states that could be associated with what we now recognize as anxiety. He believed in the theory of the four humours, which, do you know the four humours? I've heard this before, but I forgot them completely until I read them again. So you've got blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile.
Ooh.
So he believed the body was made up, like the inside of the body was made up of those four humours.
Yep.
And he thought that an imbalance could cause various diseases, including those that affected the mind. So if you had more black bile, you could be like, you'd have anxiety symptoms and stuff like that.
So he was not far off right, talking about the fact that the way your physical body is made up does have a profound impact on the way your mental state
Yeah,
is.
he wasn't far out, and phlegm does exist, and so does blood. So does blum as well, actually.
Blum ain't real, boy.
I'm more stupid than the ancient Greeks. That's crazy. With all the information we got right now, I'm talking about blum being in the body. Yellow bile and black bile. Now, we do have stomach bile, don't we?
Yep.
What color do you think that would be? I don't know. Yellow?
Yeah, yellow.
Anyway, he described the conditions such as melancholia. You must have heard of that.
That's depression.
Yeah,
Yep.
which shares similarities with modern day depression and anxiety.
Did you know there was a very popular doctor in London that used to cure women of melancholia
Really?
by fingering them? So women would come in and he'd be like, don't worry. And I'm guessing,
I've heard that before.
As if the orgasm gap isn't bad enough currently. I mean, it was probably way worse back then.
Oh, yeah.
A couple 100 years ago. And so a lot of these
my
women
God.
probably never experienced it from another person, another man. And they would come into his...
I've heard this before.
They would come into his office and he had this, I think they still have it, one of his like
Oh, he used a device.
dildos. But he'd use his
Dildos.
finger to do the hook up and in, like press on the G-spot and like pull on it.
It's crazy he knew where the G-spot was.
Yeah.
And we're
he's
still
really good at it.
searching. That's insane. He found the clip before anyone. Oh my God.
And
That's
women obviously would
nuts.
just line up to come back because
they'd feel great for a
Yeah, and
bit.
they would feel great because they'd not. Yeah,
It releases oxytocin, doesn't
yeah,
it?
that's probably one of the symptoms. Probably one of the genuine ways.
Ways to,
Just orgasm.
that is true. If you just orgasm all the time, then you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Then the Romans had a different view. They attributed anxiety and other mental disturbances to the influence of the gods or a punishment for moral failings. There were more practical approaches, though. The Roman philosopher Seneca wrote about anxiety, literally anxiety, and offered Stoic advice for managing it. Seneca's writing suggested that anxiety arose from one's fears and worries about the future, and he advocated for a more rational approach to dealing with these emotions. So he was pretty much bang on. As in, he had a way better understanding of anxiety than anyone had before.
Yeah.
You know, he actually figured out it was just thoughts, that can't be helped. And obviously he goes on to say more rational approach to dealing with these emotions isn't right, but he was along the right lines. Then we look at the medieval and Renaissance views. During the medieval period, anxiety was often seen through a religious lens, so it goes back to religion.
Of course.
They were often interpreted as signs of spiritual weakness or demonic possession. Treatment included prayer, fasting, and other religious rituals. Then in the Renaissance, there was a shift back towards classical ideas. The Renaissance physician Robert Burton's The Anatomy of Melancholy is a comprehensive text that discusses melancholy and anxiety in great detail, suggesting various treatments, including diet, exercise, and music. And I did want to speak about music because I saw a TikTok not long ago, and it was actually it was valid.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it wasn't just like a stupid TikTok about this song that you can listen to that actually does reduce your anxiety.
So I read this paper.
Yeah.
I know exactly what you're talking about, and I actually
Have you got the song?
compiled a playlist. So it wasn't just one song.
Oh, because I've just got one.
They looked at a bunch of the songs
Nice.
and I bet it's this on the playlist. Let me read through.
It's like 8 minutes long, this song that I'm thinking of.
I'm almost certain because it was I think it was in the Journal of Psychology. I can't remember which one it
Yeah.
but I think it was one of those. And they basically looked at people's stress levels and looked at a bunch of songs and found like maybe 10, 15 songs that basically reduced people's stress the most, like slowed their heart rate, reduced their anxiety and all this kind of stuff. And I thought it was so interesting that I actually made a Spotify playlist of all the songs that the scientists came out with, because I was like, if I ever really need it, I think it's this one, Ultra Chill.
That's cool.
It'll be one of these. Do you have the song name?
I did, but I forgot it. So if I'm going to find it and I'll put it in the top of the YouTube comments or whatever. So you guys can find it. Because I personally think music does actually really help. Have you found that? Have you listened to that at all or not?
I have. Yeah, it's really good.
It really did, because it eliminates the, like, you know, when you try and meditate and the thoughts keep popping into your mind. If you just focus on music, I feel like it's easier to avoid thoughts just popping in out of nowhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's really cool that they've got you've got a whole playlist. Can you share playlists or not?
Oh, here we go. It's Calming. I think it's Weightless Part 1.
Yeah, it's Weightless, yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
That's
Marconi Union.
Yes, that's
the first one. So it's called Calming. It's a public playlist. It's 41 minutes. And it has, does it say how many songs it's got? 2 people have saved it, to be fair. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There are 8 songs, 41 minutes. And they're all scientifically proven to basically relax you.
Yeah,
and it's so effective.
Oh, it really is.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll put Weightless on before, like on the way to a shoot or something.
Really?
Yeah, not because I'm got proper anxiety, but more just to lower my heart rate, because I do get a little nervous for shoots, obviously.
Yep.
And then Sigmund Freud came about. He had a lot of ideas. Originally, he thought it was a result of repressed sexual energy, the libido.
I remember that one.
And so he's kind of like the London doctor. He thought people needed to just bust a nut. Then he developed the role of the id, ego, and superego. You heard of this?
Yeah.
So the id represents primal desires and impulses. The ego is the rational part that mediates between the id and the realities of the external world. And the superego represents internalized societal norms and morals. And those are the 3 parts of the mind, basically, he thought. So he thought it was just a battle between those that decided whether you'd have anxiety or not, sort of. And he came up with 3 different types of anxiety, one being realistic anxiety, fear of real world events and dangers. Neurotic anxiety, fear that the id's impulses will get out of control and lead to punishment and or negative outcomes. This is usually an unconscious anxiety and manifests in phobias, obsessive compulsive behaviors, and other neurotic symptoms. And then moral anxiety, fear of violating moral or societal codes, often experienced as guilt or shame.
Mm-hmm.
And then after Sigmund Freud, we have much more research into the topic and much more of a better understanding of what it is. And that's pretty much the history of anxiety.
Interesting.
There was a lot of spiritual and religious involvement.
Yeah.
Which you would expect.
As is often the case, throughout history. When we couldn't explain stuff, we'd always just fill the void with the supernatural.
And then it became biological for a bit.
Yeah.
And then psychological. And now we know what it is. So yeah. What about you? Have you ever had do you ever think you've had anxiety or not?
I think I have mild health anxiety. I think people that have listened to me probably see that. Yeah. That I'm guessing stems from the fear of death, I guess. Do you think? Yeah, as it does with a lot of people. But you know, I almost didn't go into locked in because I thought I had brain cancer. Really? So for about 2 weeks, I was getting these really, really bad headaches, and I couldn't figure out what it was. Like I would lie on my head, with my head on the pillow at the back, and at night it felt like someone had a baseball bat and was whacking me in the back of the head, and I was like, what could this possibly be? And I was like Googling symptoms, and it was like, oh, if it lasts a couple of weeks, it's something way more serious than a normal headache. And one of these days I just woke up feeling really nauseous, and I typed that in on the symptoms. And then I eventually got to this point, like 3 days before locked in, where I had every single symptom for a brain tumor. Damn. And I was like, and I was like, I can't go into the locked in house and just let it like fester for 2 weeks, because that's like critical if you've got brain. I was like, I need to catch it. And I even went to the opticians because I spoke to my doctor, and they were like, the best way you can tell if you have a brain tumor that's affecting you is by going to opticians, because they can tell from the pressure from behind your eyes, essentially. whether there might be something growing.
So when you went to the optician, did you say to them, can you check if I have brain cancer?
I was like, I think I'm seriously worried that I've got something growing in my brain. And it came back all clear, and I was like, oh, fine. And my doctor was like, just didn't really know what was going on. He was like, and I even went to A&E one night when it got really bad, and they was like, it's just a normal headache. And I was like, I feel like you're really not taking this seriously.
Yeah.
And then I did so much research, and I ended up figuring out that it was occipital neuralgia, I think was what it's called, which is, funny enough, I was looking at my phone too much, looking like pointing down.
Oh.
And because your head's not really evolved to like point down a lot, it was like straining the nerves on the back of my neck and back of my head. And that was why it was so like thumping painful when I was lying on my back, and like why I would get it during the day.
So how did you overcome that? Did you just stop doing that?
Locked in fixed it because I wasn't allowed on my phone.
Of course.
So I had this awful headache for like 2 or 3 weeks, went into the house, and literally like day one, it was gone.
I bet that was such a relief.
It was such a relief. I was lying there at night, just like, oh my goodness, I can actually sleep pain-free.
Oh, that's nice.
It was so nice. But a lot of the time, whenever I get something, my first thought is cancer.
Yeah. I do that. I used to do that more than I do now.
Yeah.
What's the word? Hypochondriac. Is that the right word for it? It's where you really fear, like, anytime you have any kind of illness, you think it's really bad, way worse than it is.
Yeah.
So yeah, would you say like, so even when you got a cold, do you think?
No, weirdly, it tends to just be, and I wonder if it's, both my grandparents died from cancer when I was younger.
Is it purely cancer that you're worried about?
And so that's always one, if there's like cancer symptoms, I'm like, oh my God. I think there's something quite terrifying about cancer obviously as well, because I remember when my grandparents passed away from it, I went through, and I probably don't want to talk about this in much detail, but I remember being like, I couldn't really understand why having a tumor would kill you. And then I looked it up and figured it out, and I was like, this is just terrifying and awful. Yeah. And there's just that real kind of like, it's a dark topic, and one perhaps for another time. I don't want to, I'm given the number of people that pass away from it nowadays, there's probably a lot of people.
We could do a whole episode on cancer, to be honest.
We could. And then people can be like, this one isn't for me because of personal reasons. But now whenever there's symptoms that line up and I Google it, and it's like, I feel like I have any other, I'm always like really terrified.
Really? Do you get anxiety about anything else, or is it mainly like health anxiety?
Yeah, nothing like that. I never really have any kind of like emotions that aren't caused by stuff. Yeah. So I think that's I think when my I remember the first time, like I said, I never really heard about mental health stuff in school. I remember one of my friends at uni in first year was like, oh, I'm feeling really anxious. And I was like, oh, what are you feeling anxious about? And they were like, oh, I'm just feeling anxious. And it took like a long conversation for me to understand that someone could feel emotions without anything. Cause like, if you've never experienced it before, it's quite difficult to imagine someone feeling like, can you imagine me being here? Obviously you've got the anxiety one, but if I was like, I feel really scared right now, like I'm watching a horror movie, you'd be like, there's nothing to be scared about. There's no ghosts here. Like from a purely rational one, it's quite a funny one to understand. And same with depression as well, just being like the thought that someone can be sad without anything necessarily to be sad about. Yeah. And that's why I think I really like hearing the science side of things, because it's like when I'm sad about something happening, it's because of a chemical composition in my brain that might be, brought to that condition because of logical reasons. But like whatever's happening in my brain when I feel sad is the exact same as someone else feeling sad, but without a reason or without what I would consider to be a logical reason. It's just because of their, chemical makeup of their brain, or the way they're wired. And
it's genuinely something you just can't help. They can't even explain it themselves. Like, especially when I had anxiety, I was like, I can't tell you why I'm anxious. Yeah. And I don't want to be, but I just can't help it.
And does it make you feel more anxious because you're like, why am I feeling like this? Like, I don't understand.
Then you start to panic, and that's when panic attacks come on. Right. Because you're like, oh my God, this is getting worse. My heart rate's increasing. And then you start to become aware of all your symptoms. Yeah. And you think something bad, like, oh, I'm going to pass out now. And then you start thinking those things. And then before you know it, you're having a panic attack.
Go on.
No, I was just going to say, I never personally had a panic attack. But I could just imagine how bad that would be. Because I know what the feeling is before. And then for it to just keep going to the point where you can't even breathe and you're hyperventilating and stuff like that. Yeah. And to think that's all brought on from like just the science going on in your brain, and it's just
crazy.
Cause this to yourself. It's crazy.
I remember, obviously never studied psychology, so I've barely read this. So I imagine I'll get a lot of psychology students correcting me on this.
I did psychology at A level.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
So didn't Freud kind of separate anxiety into kind of like a situational one where it's like something's happening to you to cause this, like you're you're in a fight or you've got to flight, or so he separated that from like worrying about something in advance, like almost like an impending threat.
Yeah, he had different types of anxiety.
Yeah,
like you said.
And that's what would worry me, like, because I think if I started feeling anxious and I wouldn't know why, I think it would make me start worrying, like, has my brain kind of subconsciously clocked onto something that I haven't spotted yet? Because it's like, oh, if I feel anxious now, the main times I feel it, if something isn't already happening, it's because it's like, oh, I've got a really important video later on and I want to make sure I perform well on it, or I don't say anything embarrassing or anything like that, or, and I'm almost like my body's preparing for something stressful. So I imagine if I felt a sudden rush of anxiety that without something immediate, I'd be like, oh, have I forgotten something? Like, have I completely, have I left the oven on? Have I left my door unlocked or something worse? Like,
you'd start to think there's a reason for it.
Yeah. And then that would make me worry more, because I'd be like, I don't even know why I'm worrying so much.
Yeah. No, it is a weird one. For me, I mean, the only way that I sort of got better with it was just doing the things that gave me anxiety. Like with driving, for instance, it was weird. Like I would really hate the days when I had driving lessons, and I would just be terrified before doing the driving lesson. I'd be all right when I was doing it. I'd be so happy when I would get so sweaty. I felt bad for my driving instructor. Oh my God. Or the people in that seat after me, I would get so sweaty. And then after I passed my test and everything, I just wouldn't drive to certain towns because I'd be so anxious, and for no good reason, because it was like, what's the worst that can happen? Yeah. I know the towns around me as well, very quiet, and it's like, what's the worst case scenario? But I would just make up scenarios in my head and think the worst and be like, oh no, that's just going to be terrible. I can't drive there. I'm just going to get anxious, and then I can't do it. It's like the thought of, you sort of convince yourself that you can't do something because it's going to give you anxiety doing it. But the more that I did it and just forced because there'll be times when I have to do it. Like if I had a job interview, I have to drive to a town and go and do it. The more you do something, for me anyway, that's what helped me. The more I did uncomfortable things, it became normal to me, and I realized actually I can do that.
I kind of had that socially, I would say, actually. Before I went to uni, I would say I like had probably quite strong social anxiety, not in a, I just think I would worry about social situations a lot. And I remember when I went to uni, because I'm from Jersey, I went on Internationals Day, which was on the Thursday.
Right.
And all the like people from England and Scotland and Wales and stuff didn't come until Sunday.
Right.
And on Thursday, I went downstairs. Like there were a bunch of people who like I spoke to, but I was like, I don't feel like I have a lot in common with these guys.
Yeah.
And I stayed in my room for like days and barely came out. And I was like, this is so bad. And I was like, when everyone arrives, like, how am I going to go and introduce myself to people I don't know? I think especially like growing up in Jersey, like a small island where like everyone knows everyone.
Yeah.
Like my friends in school were my friends since I was like 3 years old, and like there was no kind of like entering a new social setting. And I was like, oh, I really can't do this.
Yeah.
And I was lucky because my my uni window looked out onto like a five-a-side football pitch. So at our college, I went to Trevelyan College in Durham, and outside my thing was the cage.
Yeah.
And that was where that football thing was. And on the Sunday, it was a sunny day. And I remember just being like, I'm actually going to make no mates at uni because I'm just going to be locked in my room. I didn't want to come out. Looked outside and there were like 5 or 6 boys out there playing football in the cage. And I was like, this is so perfect. And I went out, and of those 6 boys, there ended up being like 12 or 13. We ended up playing football. And like 5 or 6 of them now are like some of my best friends ever. Wow. Like one of them actually, I'm going to their engagement drinks this Saturday night because he's getting engaged to his girlfriend, who also that he met at Trev's at Trevelyan College. But I always think back and I was like, God, if I didn't play football,
didn't do that,
like I have no idea how I would have made mates at uni. Yeah. Because as well, like when you join a uni football team, like they become like your family. Like, my mates throughout my entire thing were just the people I wasn't mates with people I did law with.
Yeah.
Really, because I'd rock up to a lecture, leave the lecture, and you wouldn't really speak to them.
Yeah, you don't speak
to
them.
But like we'd have training at football together, so you'd have a team, and then you'd obviously have the social nights. So like Wednesday night was the like football night where everyone would go out. Monday nights often as well. And that was where like, you know, you're with your team and it becomes like a big family. And yeah, I think if I didn't have football, I genuinely have no idea how I would have made mates.
Damn.
Tough one.
Did you, before you went to say something to them, were you nervous? Were you like, I don't want it? Did you deliberate in your head, like, should I go down and say something? I mean, go
when
and
I
play
saw it was football, it was quite an easy one because I was like, I don't even have to do any
That's true. You don't really
socialising.
have to talk much then, do you?
I can just go in. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was obviously like, played a bit of football. So I was like, I'll at least be able to, you know, not turn up and be like, God, this is embarrassing. I have no idea what I'm doing.
Yeah. Would you say you still have any social anxiety now or no?
Yeah, I would say I'm definitely towards the much more anxious end of the spectrum in terms of like a normal, like I really, it's, again, like now my friendship group is so settled. Like I've been friends with George, Chris, Harry, Arthur, now you for like a good amount of time.
Yeah.
Like I feel like whenever there's a social event, one of you guys are there.
Yeah,
and if you're not, I ain't going.
Yeah. Like James, for instance, came by himself last night, and I was thinking, damn, we went to an event last night, and James Foreman was there, and he just rocked up by himself.
Yeah.
He was just like, hey, I don't care.
Yeah, fair. I wish I could do that.
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to do that.
No.
And I mean, before I probably wouldn't even be able to go to something with a friend.
Yeah.
Like social anxiety was a big thing for me as well.
Yeah.
But I just think it's the more you do something, or the more you tell yourself you can do something, then you will do it. And once you do it, you know you can do it.
Yeah.
You know?
I'm glad, it makes me glad I'm not like a particularly like big influencer, because people talk about big influencers. Sometimes I'll see them and they'll be like, oh, you know, I was at an event with this person. Like people talk about KSI being like, oh, I did you hear people talking about him at the Mr. Beast shoot? I can't remember, it was like Leah Houghton just being like, KSI came in and just introduced himself to everybody and was like the sweetest guy ever.
Yeah.
And that's like such a great trait and makes him seem so nice and relatable and stuff like that. And actually the few times I've met him, he has been exactly like that as well.
Yeah.
Like so nice and friendly, like couldn't care less that he had no idea who I was, and that I probably had no, you know, that I wasn't famous or anything like that. Whereas I picture myself being like that. I was like, if I had 10 mil subs, everyone would be on the line. Like, that guy's such a stuck-up asshole.
So
he
true,
he didn't say hi to anybody.
That's
and
true.
I'd be like, it's not because I think I'm too big or too cool for you guys.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have the confidence.
That's so true. That's such a good point, actually.
Yeah.
Because I feel like so many people would jump to conclusions and think someone's not a good person because they've not said hello. But some people just aren't confident.
Like he didn't know who I was. He never come to say hi. And it's like, it's not that.
Because what you see on camera isn't like, this is different. We can be like who we are in front of a camera because it's just us in this room and Laura. But when you're outside in a public space, people on camera are going to be different.
Yeah.
You know, like, and also like saying goodbye to people. I never know how to say goodbye.
Yeah.
I don't know whether to hug people or shake their hand or what. So sometimes I just say goodbye, but then it might come across like rude. As like I've shaken his hand, but then I didn't hug the girl. But then I don't want to make them uncomfortable. Yeah, like
Adam, who did the Dream podcast episode with us.
Yeah.
When he said goodbye, gave me a hug, dapped up James, and then dapped you and pulled in and shook. And I was like, that's three different that I rate that so highly because I panic in those situations.
Yeah, you don't know what to do.
Yeah. But whenever if I'm out and I meet fans, the number of times I get messages after being like, I'm really sorry I was awkward. And I was like, that's not your fault.
Yeah, that's so
Because they'll be
true.
like, oh, hey, I recognize you from YouTube. And I never know what to say.
Yeah.
I try and have, like I said, a script of like things to say.
Yeah.
I always go, oh, no way, small world. That's my like one thing.
That's quite good. I never thought of that.
Good one. They go, oh, I recognize you from this. And I go, oh, no way, small world. And then the number of times they'll go, okay. The worst one's like if I'm in a queue with someone. I was at like a festival.
Yeah.
And this girl recognized me in front and was like, oh, no way. Like, I love your videos. And I was like, thank you so much. Like, how are you enjoying the festival? Like basic questions. Like basically a small talk. Like, oh yeah, really good. Thanks.
That was it. And then you're just in a queue.
And then she just turns around and then messaged me later being like, I'm really sorry. I was so awkward. And I was like, don't worry. I cannot. I'm very much like, I match energy. So if someone's a bit awkward and they can't like carry a conversation, I can't either. Like, and I wonder if that's because I overthink. Like, I really like people who, when it's quiet, will just yap at me.
Yeah.
And so like, it will be really quiet. We'll be at the pub and they'll just go, You know what happened to me the other day? And they'll kind of
just
tell a
feel
story that
silences.
textbook, like there's no reason I should particularly care.
Yeah.
But I do, because it's like, you know, they're just telling me about their life.
They know how to keep a conversation
But if
going.
it's quiet, that story would come into my head and I'd be like, he's not going to care about that. Like
Right.
he's not going to care. And so I will never say anything.
Yeah.
And I'll try and ask like, you know, usual small talk questions, but sometimes I just panic.
Some days I'm on it, some days I'm not.
Yeah.
Like some days I'll just have really awkward interactions. And I get the same thing. Like a fan will say, sorry, I was so awkward earlier. And I'm thinking in my head, I was the awkward one.
Yeah.
I don't know what you're talking about.
They probably do mean that as well. I always think that when they
Do you reckon?
message, they're probably like, they were so awkward.
Yeah. But that's it. Like, don't think in your head, oh no, I've just been really awkward. He's thinking about that. No, we're thinking about how awkward we were.
That's a common thing, you know, the general idea that people are nowhere near as focused on you as you think.
Oh, 100%.
What's it called? The spotlight complex or something?
Yeah.
Where you go like, oh, like I've got a massive spot. Like everyone's looking at me thinking, oh,
Yeah.
I'm so ugly. Like, you
No
know,
one cares.
quite a spotty guy, especially over the last a couple of years ago. My skin's a bit better now, but I've
You've
got
got
a
good
better
skin.
skincare routine. But if you look at me when I first on YouTube, I used to have so many spots. And thankfully, growing up with a lot of sisters, I was like, I need help with this. And my little sister was like, let me introduce you to
gotcha.
something called concealer.
Let me just,
And it was very helpful. But I was like, I can never film because all the comments are going to be like gross spot and like barely anyone will care.
Yeah, that's so true.
And you always think, I remember I did a TikTok once being like, oh, you're embarrassed about that thing you did. Tell me the last time someone else said something embarrassing. It's kind of hard to really remember that many.
I can't think of
Like, when
anything.
was the last time someone was really awkward to you, like that you know?
Can't
Obviously, we
remember
have these
anything.
kind of awkward fan interactions, probably a bit more than the regular
Yeah.
people, but stuff like that, you never really think like, oh,
No.
they were so awkward.
It's
or
forgotten
that.
about like that.
Yeah.
Literally.
Everyone's so focused on themselves these days.
So true. It's
Not
so
even
true.
these days, just in general, that
Just, yeah.
you don't need to worry about
Yeah.
it. But it doesn't mean you don't.
So true. Like if you come away from a situation thinking, oh, I should have said that, or I shouldn't have said that, or I wish I was a bit more like this. The other person's really not thinking about how you came across. They're just going to be thinking about how they came across anyway.
Yeah.
And probably critiquing themselves. So
I'm a lot like that on other people's videos and podcasts, you know. I always finish the video and I'm like,
same.
maybe
I'm
I
like,
shouldn't have made that
should have
joke.
been
Or,
funnier. Or
I
yeah.
should have said that. The surfboard story, telling it twice was crazy. Both times I was like, why the hell did I
do
tell that thing? Or like, yeah. I just remember I sometimes get family members being like, I had to stop listening to this podcast.
Really?
It's always the fellas as well. Because they
They
will
bring out
literally-
the horny in you. That's what it is.
Yeah, they'll just start a conversation like just being like, so like, do you remember Freezy just being like, well, that's enough of that. Let's talk about sucking. And I was like, what? And then they come out with such outrageous stories. You're like, fuck it.
Yeah, they're talking about nutting 5,000 times in a row.
Yeah.
Then you're like, oh, well, I've got
And
to
you're
follow.
like, my story pales in comparison. But
Yeah.
when it's individually clipped and put on TikTok, it's no longer it's no longer pale. You're like, well, brilliant.
Oh, that's so true. Just clipped out of context.
Yeah,
It's like you
you're
just
like-
told it. That's funny.
Yeah. And that makes me anxious.
Yeah. Well, there you go. That's a nice round
Way to finish it off.
back on anxious.
Yeah.
Do you think?
Yeah.
I think that's nice as well.
Pretty much. We can revisit it because I know there's someone that wants to speak about anxiety on the podcast with us.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So we can have a
Okay,
couple
cool.
more stories and
Nice.
stuff. We can revisit it. And obviously in the comments, let us know exactly, maybe if there's something you're like, you guys should go and read this before the next one on it and
Yeah, there's probably some
bring-
great books on it, actually.
bring up this, or, you know,
Yeah.
here's an interesting perspective that we can bring up next time.
Yeah.
Because we definitely won't have covered even the surface.
No, exactly. And if you take any message away from today, you can do it. My delivery wasn't the best.
Yeah.
You can.
Bro's feeling anxious about his delivery. Hey, don't worry about it. Does that help?
Yeah, that's much better. That reminded me of a TikTok. There's it's kind of a funny one. You want to hear it?
Go on.
It was just a guy saying, if you're ever feeling a little nervous for something, here's a good breathing technique.
I've seen them.
It's funny because it's not true. Anyway, you can do it. Tell yourself you can do it. You can do it, and be kind to yourself.
In fact, we're kind of going off anxiety, but as a good segue, something made us feel very anxious last night.
Yes.
So we had
Something
another
did.
sleepover because we have the podcast and Simon thing today and the event yesterday. Batch was like, please let me stay over. And I was like, fine.
That's not true. But I did beg to stay in your bed, and you kicked me out at 3 a.m. because you didn't realize I'd crawled in.
No, I didn't. It was really weird, actually. No, we were probably still up at 3 a.m. We filmed 4 videos yesterday.
Yeah, that's true.
Everyone was begging being like, I hope you vlogged this. I hope you vlogged this to my story last night randomly. And I wanted to say, Batch vlogged it.
We did vlog it.
And then we went home. We played a Roblox horror game.
Oh my God.
That I genuinely think was one of the funniest videos we've ever filmed.
It was so good.
And right at the start, I was like moving the mic, and I was like, you know what? I have a horror story about this. Last time I did this and manually moved the mic, it's got a touch screen mute button, and I was like, I muted it, and we finished the video, and the mic was muted. And we had genuinely we were so weird, and I thought we were so funny. Obviously,
it was so like there was loads of moments in it that just couldn't be recreated because it was just chance, and it was so funny.
Like it was a horror game, and there was like a banana peel on the floor, and Batch like slipped on it.
It made a noise.
It jump scared him. It went whoop.
Yeah, because I was already scared, and so I walked over the banana and went whoop, and I just shat myself.
He jumped an absolute mile.
Yeah, it did scare, and obviously that can't be recreated.
No, but we ended up playing other Roblox horror games.
Yeah, we did.
And they were actually really good.
Yeah, they were good. It was a good filming session.
Yeah, it was.
Those are fun, the Roblox horror games.
Yeah. They're a nice mix of like genuine horror. Because we were genuinely scared.
Genuinely scared, yeah.
Bro, when people were like, play Roblox horror, I dare you. We were like, well, that's not going to be scary, is it?
Yeah.
Roblox. Like, there were Roblox characters wandering around. They're scary.
Oh, they're scary.
We get scared quite easily, I feel.
It's jump scare,
though, isn't it? We jump a mile.
Like in a jump, the thing is, we film it at like 1 a.m. It's dark everywhere except for lights on our faces.
Yeah.
It's dark on the screen, so it's just a tense environment. I know that I'm sleeping in a place with you, so I'm already tense.
He's tensing.
I'm already tensing.
He's trying to present. He's got his 6-pack tense. He's lifting up his shirt.
Yeah, watch the video. I'm tensing, oiled up, the whole video.
There is a bit where he's moving the mouse, and it looks like you're. Yeah,
he said about my arm. Yeah, because that mouse was over there. You know,
I let him play this time.
You know how he does it. Yeah, so he let me play this time, but all the mouse and keyboard was over on his side. So I was.
And it was like directly under the camera, so it was like.
It looked like I was just.
It looked like you were tensing your arms.
Yeah, I wasn't. I was locked out. I play claw.
He could have just brought the mouse and the mouse magnet closer to him. It's just a big desk.
Hey, it's your house. I don't want to intervene.
No, it's funny. It was so funny, but
that was good.
I'm loving the horror games. I'm glad people liked the first one that we did together. It did really well.
It did.
I'm glad people like it because they're so fun. Like I love getting scared. That's a weird one, kind of anxiety related. Like, why do we enjoy so much being terrified?
It's like when you spoke about why do we enjoy watching cringe videos?
Yeah,
you know, it's like putting yourself through kind of suffering.
But we did that. We did that episode on why we enjoy watching cringe, and there are evolutionary reasons behind it. I wonder what the horror one is. Like, why would you want to put yourself in a scary environment?
But why?
Yeah,
I don't know. Maybe there's got to be some benefit to. Maybe it's taking that risk is a biological advantage.
That can't be taking a risk. If you're like, I'm scared that there might be a bear in that cave. There's no evolutionary advantage of being like, I'm going in.
Maybe it's training your fight or flight. Anyone with a good fight or flight is going to survive.
Yeah, but you shouldn't want to trigger it.
Train your fight or flight. Maybe
if you want to train your fight or flight, go check out our horror gaming videos because they're so fun.
Oh my God. Speaking of training fight or flight, you know, to have people with hay fever are less likely to get cancer.
Really?
Yeah.
That's so rogue.
Because hay fever is like your body produces histamines, and then it causes reaction to the pollen. Because it's like, oh my God, so it's sort of attacking itself. Like the symptoms aren't caused by pollen; it's caused by the histamines you produce because you think the pollen is like a virus, and so that's why you get a runny nose and eyes and stuff because you're trying to expel a virus which doesn't exist, and because your body is fighting all the time, it becomes really strong.
Wow!
And so you get a cancer cell, and it's better at defending against it.
Go you! All right, should we finish off on? We've got a little mini game.
Yeah. We got Lara's classic, find the missing word in the comments.
Okay. We let's do this a little bit quicker because
let's go. So
we have a train to catch.
The first comment.
In another universe, Batch and Arthur are philosophers in ancient Greece, I'm going with.
So it's blank word in ancient Greece. I'm going to say it's lovers in ancient Greece.
And the answer? Forbidden lovers. You got it right. Did you read that one already?
No. Genuinely. I just thought it would be, but that's quite long. Yeah, okay. Sweet.
Alex, I recognise this face from the Patreon.
Alex, we saw her at the soapbox race. She gave us a Polaroid camera.
Yeah.
Remember? Shout out Alex.
And what a surprise. She's bullying me again.
And she flied all the way from Poland to be at the...
Really?
Yeah, to be at the soapbox race. So
That is very cool.
Massive appreciation.
A lot of people did travel very far. Shout out everyone who traveled.
So true. Leah came from Germany.
Whether it's 1 meter or very far.
Yeah, so true. Arthur looks like he can't blank. Arthur looks like he can't breathe. Twerk. This list goes on.
Everyone's seen that George Clarke's second TikTok video.
Why is that the bit you're annoyed about?
On the train.
Me saying you can't breathe, that's fine. But as soon as I say you can't twerk, you get defensive.
Because I do struggle breathing.
Arthur looks like he can't. Why? Anyway, great. Okay, no, we need to answer this. Okay.
Sorry.
Arthur looks like he can't. I'm going to go.
Eat nuts.
I'm going to go with. Fart.
I'm going to go swim.
Oh my God, that's a banger. Oh my God, swim, to be honest. And it's true, you can't swim.
What?
You have to go on my back and I swim like...
So the reason she's saying that, I'm guessing, is because muscle sinks.
That's true, it's heavier
so
than fat.
I sink like a stone.
It's not very buoyant.
Because, thanks Alex for noticing, I've actually been
right.
Working on my physical health. So thank you for the kind compliment.
Anyway, Grace Taylor says, Batch and Arthur are my internal monologue. And in brackets, there's a hidden word. Internal monologue, in brackets. What? I think it's going to be what that.
Do you think what?
Yeah, I think so.
A Batch and Arthur are my internal monologue.
Or brain rot.
Oh.
What do you think?
I think brain rot.
Okay, let's
You
find
go
out.
with what?
I'll go with what. You
I'll
go
steal
brain.
your brain rot.
I'm autistic.
I'm autistic. Okay.
So we're autistic, I guess.
Fair enough.
Nice.
It's not the first time I've heard that. Thanks, Grace Taylor.
Okay. Ebony says, Batch and Arthur definitely blank off camera. Blank sounds too close to wank as well.
Yeah.
Okay. They definitely kiss. Hug?
Arthur and Batch and Arthur definitely menstruate off camera.
Yeah, because it was a menstruation episode. Okay.
That was 5 days ago, though.
Bleed off camera.
Emily. I'm recognizing so many of these from the Patreon. They're all getting top comments.
I'm going to go with some form of kiss again. Snog.
Fine. I'm going to menstruate.
Play Scrabble.
How's that got 143 likes?
We have played board games together, but
I
not
don't think I've
Scrabble.
ever played Scrabble.
Yeah, you wouldn't be able
We
to
like
because you can't
Pictionary and
read.
chess.
Yeah, that's true. We've never played chess together, though. Okay, Lily Jones says, Arthur is a... Can't say that word on here.
Arthur is a...
Baby Gronk.
Arthur is
a... Queen? I'm going with Queen.
I'm going to go with... Arthur is a great name.
Arthur is a nut allergy. Bang on. That's bang on. Well done, Lily.
One nice comment.
Okay. Tove the cat or Tove the cat says, Batch really needs to learn. I'm great at it and he's all talk. Skill issue for real. What do I claim to know?
No, what do you need to learn? But great at it. So it's like a verb.
Needs to learn karaoke?
No. And he's all talk. Skill issue for real.
So what do I say that I can do a lot, but I can't really?
You're just slow relative to me in terms of running.
I think I could be quicker than you.
Batch really needs to learn...
Etiquette. No, I don't speak about that.
High-fiving.
Yeah.
How to high-five.
Okay, let's just go for that. Because I can't think of anything. To menstruate.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, that's true. I do need to learn
How
to do
do we
that.
not guess that?
That's been on my to-do list for a while. Okay. Me says, I miss the constant comments. Sad face.
It's not Lara, because there are constant Lara comments.
Maybe...
Everyone always spells Lara weirdly and differently because we encouraged it. And someone spelled her with a 0 the other day. I think there was a comment on the podcast that went up yesterday that was like, I love Laura.
Laura.
And her games. And it was like LA0RA.
This is another certified Laura classic as well. Okay, I miss the constant...
What did we used to...
What?
What did we used to
We
do?
don't do what so much. I miss the constant brain rot comments.
I'm going to say, come on. I miss the constant.
What colour is it? That's
Of
so
course.
true. We should bring that back.
That should have stopped way earlier than it did.
Okay, Clee says, do you think they've kissed off camera?
Do you think they've become best friends?
explored each other's bodies.
For goodness sakes.
Alessia Gatti, says, OMG, a new couch. Next thing, blank, and it's a long blank.
They're going to be exploring each other's bodies, I'm guessing again.
Next thing, a blanket. Do you think?
Go.
Let's lock that in.
They're going to explore each other's bodies.
Fuck's sake.
Yeah, I knew that was coming just because of the
Do
last
we
one.
speak about this sort of stuff? Why is all our comments is expecting us to kiss, explore each other's bodies?
And it's crazy because we're both like the most heterosexual men on the planet.
Yeah, I've had a girlfriend for 6 years.
I don't even look at other men unless it's in a business context.
True. That's why you got me straight on board with this.
I told my dad, I was like, we start a business together or we cut ties. Why is Lara laughing off camera?
Yeah, because it's so true. Well, you do give a firm handshake, that's for sure. And on that note, we'll give you a firm handshake. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Thanks for watching. Rate us highly on the Spotify podcast. We're in the top three,
top
four.
three.
Top three. We've just fallen out of the top three
we
and
just
become
fell off
top
top
four
three.
comedy
Yeah, we fell off.
podcasts.
Yeah.
But thank you so much. Everyone did the rating thing.
Yeah, keep doing that. That's nice of you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Keep watching, keep liking. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube if you haven't already.
Yeah.
Follow us on socials. Join the Patreon. It's such good fun. The mukbang will already be out by the time you're watching this podcast.
Yeah, finally. We'll do another as well.
And if you made it this far, what's an anxiety related emoji?
Okay, just do a breath emoji. You know,
the blow, the exhale
blow.
emoji.
Yeah. Do the blow emoji because it's about breathing.
And remember to breathe.
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 And tell yourself you can do things. You can do it. Okay.
Yeah.
Already said that.
I hope everyone's doing well and good luck in your journeys regarding anxiety for those who have it. Hope you're managing well. Hope this was of some help or of some interest to you.
Yeah.
Looking forward to reading all your corrections, telling us how dumb we are, now we know nothing.
Be kind to yourself and be kind to us as well. Please. Thanks. Thanks, guys. Bye.